Assalamu alaikum everybody, and a very warm welcome to episode 37 in the Arabic with Sam podcast. I pray that you guys are well and in the best of health. Hope you guys have had an awesome week, and I hope you've been enjoying all the stuff that we're doing on YouTube and here on the podcast, and all the stuff we're doing in the Arabic in 60 Steps program and everything like that. So, what on earth are we talking about today? We have a really cool podcast actually, really cool episode available today. And I've been looking forward to this for a little while. I can't believe I haven't really talked about this before, because there are lots of resources out there for learning Arabic, right? Like, no doubt, there are tons of curriculums. You can't move for curriculums, to be honest. There's loads of books, there's loads of curriculums. But really, most of us don't really know how we get the information in these curriculums, and we get it in our brains. Like, that isn't the bit that's the most obvious bit to us. So I think it is important for Arabic teachers to take the time to teach students how to learn better. So in this episode, we're talking about the learning styles. There are kind of four main learning styles you kind of learn about in pedagogy. So we're going to talk about them and talk about how we apply them for Arabic. And I'm particularly excited about this because, I think a lot of you know that I used to be a primary school teacher. I started out my career as a primary school teacher. Terrible at my job. I would have been sacked if I hadn't left, but alhamdulillah for that, because if I'd still been there, then I never would have done this podcast, never would have started teaching Arabic, and I probably would have been miserable. So let's get into it, inshallah. So, what are these four learning styles? These four learning styles include auditory, it's to do with audio, auditory. So when we actually go through these learning styles as well, bear in mind, right, that typically most learners tend to acknowledge themselves as being an auditory learner or a whatever else learner, right? So as we go through them, I want you to think a little bit about what kind of a learner you are. If this describes the kind of learner that you are. And then throughout the lesson, I'm going to kind of show you some of the things that I've done throughout my time tutoring Arabic and teaching Arabic in a classroom and stuff like that, to kind of appeal to the different learning styles, or usually to combine a number of them, right? You usually people aren't only one. Do you know what I mean? Like, usually people are a combination of them, but are more strong in one, or they just prefer one. So anyway, so what are they? The first one, as I mentioned, is auditory. Really just listening to things, right? That's what that really means. Kinesthetic. Kinesthetic is to do with engaging in something, doing something physically and practically. That is what a kinesthetic learner will learn best from. Visual. Visual, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Yeah, you are a very visual person. You will learn best by looking at things. And then linear. Linear is the one that people don't normally talk about, because people who are linear learners usually don't have a problem learning in academic environments. If you're a linear learner, you're fine anyway, because really that just means you learn from reading stuff. You just learn by looking at things in a straight line, and your brain is used to learning things in a very cumulative manner. That's not, most of us aren't like that, but there are lots of people who do that. People who just instinctively think it's a good idea to copy out notes and stuff are kind of people who are linear and a bit kinesthetic as well. So let's talk about them. Okay, so maybe we'll go through them one at a time. So I kind of planned that we'd go through auditory first, and then kinesthetic, then visual, then linear. But bear in mind, obviously, like, all of these have application for everybody, but just some people tend to lean heavier in one way than the other. Like, I lean very heavily towards kinesthetic and visual. I don't know if that's... I don't actually know. It would be interesting to know if there was sort of a particular leaning between men and women. Just from my observation, even in teaching children, I've kind of observed that men are more visual and kinesthetic generally, and women tend to be more linear than men. But auditory... I haven't noticed a particular difference, but that is something that I've kind of noticed, even across different age groups as well. But anyway, okay. So firstly, auditory. So I want to give you guys some resources and some things that you can do for yourself, and you can ask your teachers and stuff to do as well. And I'll kind of, where relevant, I'll kind of drop in little bits about where we kind of accommodate those things on the Arabic in 60 Steps program as well. So if you are considering the program and you are a particular learner, and you can acknowledge that very clearly, then we can kind of talk a bit more about how the program will serve you specifically. So firstly, in terms of some resources, right, a lot of you guys should be using a resource called Audible. There's an Audible is it's kind of, I think it's like a subsidiary of Amazon, or it's a company that Amazon own, or just a part of Amazon, and you can download audiobooks, and there are Arabic audiobooks in there as well. So you can do that, and obviously really good thing about that, and the very reason why I decided to launch this podcast was because people are becoming more auditory, right? Like people are starting to kind of prefer to consume audio only rather than watching videos. Like, you know, the amount of people who consume my YouTube videos, but they turn the YouTube video on, they leave the phone on the table, and they go off and do other stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, loads of people are trying to multitask now, and because of that, audio is strong. So there's that. I'd also like to make you aware of the Pimsleur Arabic series. I remember I learnt Egyptian Arabic for a little while with the Pimsleur series. You know, I'm not necessarily saying that it's that they are the best series for everyone, but personally, like, I know lots of people have been really successful with the Pimsleur series, but I personally found that the progression wasn't really quick enough, and were quite repetitive. But that's, you know, but that's up to the learner, really. Like, you, with it being audio, any kind of electronic resource, you can control that. Do you know what I mean? You can make it speed up or whatever. Good thing actually about these electronic resources, and you guys can do this with the podcast as well, is that you can actually speed it up. You know, whatever your podcast provider is, you know, whether you listen through, you know, iTunes or Stitcher or Spotify or whatever, you can actually just click ×2, you know, and you can listen to any podcast twice as fast. You might not want to do that with mine because I talk quite quickly anyway, but yeah, that's cool. It means that you can just get more information in your brain quicker if you're a very auditory person. And then podcasts as well. I mean, there are other podcasts. There are some that are absolutely terrible in the Arabic chart. So I've had a few emails recently saying that mine's like third in the rankings for like Arabic podcasts around the world. Arabic Pod 101 will always be they'll always be the winner. You know, shout out to those guys. You know, they've always got tons of resources, big company and stuff, so fair play to those guys. And then there's some others that are absolute rubbish, that are usually politically driven and stuff, but yeah, but there are some good podcasts out there. For learning Arabic too. So other things that you can actually do you know what I mean? So a really good thing is that it's so easy to record audio now. You know, like with this podcast, I recorded like my first 15 episodes of this podcast or whatever. I probably had like 20,000 listens on my podcast when I was literally holding the phone to my mouth and just saying it. Like, it's so easy to record audio now. Like, literally every single one of you watching this has the power to create your own resources. So like with vocab lists, a lot of the students in the Arabic in 60 Steps program likes, is when we put together literally just readings of the vocab, right? So we go through sort of between kind of 600 and 1,000 words, 600 minimum, 1,000 if you do all the extra exercise and everything like that. Like, if we make vocab lists and I just do an MP3 of me just reading them, I literally just read the list, right? I'll just read the word rajulun rijalun, man, men, you know, and I literally just read through the whole course's vocab, and then people can just listen to it when they're in the car and stuff. And like, personally, I never found that particularly useful because I'm not a very auditory learner, but because I tried to do that a lot when I was studying at SOAS at university. We used to have to learn like sometimes like 500 words a week, a few hundred words a week most of the time, and I tried to do that and it was terrible for me. Like, it just didn't work for me at all, really. I ended up just learning, that there were all of these words, but I didn't really in my head match them all up properly. Like, I could just reel off all the Arabic words and all the English words, but in my head I just didn't really match them up. They were just kind of blended into one long bit of vocab for me. But obviously you can do that with your own resources if you want. Whatever course you're doing and stuff, you can read them yourself. And yeah, so you know, so that's cool. If you're an auditory learner, it's very easy for you to create your own resources or encourage your teachers to do that for you as well, because, you know, it's very useful, and obviously, as I say, something that you can multitask with. So what should we do next? I said kinesthetic next, didn't I? So kinesthetic, us kinesthetic learners, people who like learning with their hands and practically. So being a kinesthetic learner, you would typically think would be the opposite of being an academic learner. You would typically think that it's kind of, you know, for someone who is very kinesthetic, academia generally is your kryptonite, really. Like, it's the opposite of being a linear learner, but there are definitely things you can do. So when you think about any resource that you create, right, let's say like you make little leaflets for yourself about different concepts of grammar or groups of vocab, or you make flashcards, or you make anything, right? As a kinesthetic learner, you need to be aware that the actual process of making it is probably more beneficial to you than using it. Okay, so let's say flashcards. Let's say you make 100 little flashcards. You know, I used to get I can't reach them, but I used to just get these I used to get these bits of card, like little, those of you watching on the podcast, let's say a little bit of card like that big or something, yeah? That those of you who are only listening on the podcast and aren't watching on YouTube, I'm looking at something that's like 4 inches by 2 inches or something, maybe, a little bit of card. Like I used to do at uni, I used to get like a whole pack of those, and I used to just rip them into quarters, and then do my like vocab on each side of them or whatever. And I learned from that so well because of the actual process of ripping them and writing on them with different colours and stuff. Like that is in and of itself a kinesthetic process. Whereas like all my other friends at university all kind of laughed at that, and they were like, "Why don't you just buy these little rings with already cut cards? So they're all the same size, already cut." And I'm like, "Well, because I wouldn't learn from that." Unless I was a linear learner and I just learned from the writing on them. But like the actual process of ripping them and stuff, whilst I was looking at the vocab list and preparing each of these cards, and some cards that were slightly bigger I'd be able to form 10 verbs on and whatever because they're bigger and stuff like that, the process of actually creating them was more beneficial for my learning than the actual using them. So you know, so if you're a kinesthetic learner, it's even beneficial to take the long way around, to getting resources and stuff like that, rather than just printing stuff out. Even just copying stuff out rather than printing it is beneficial for kinesthetic learners. And even like building, if you're like myself, if you're kind of a combination of kinesthetic and a visual, these kind of big posters that I like to do, I have a few actually here. These are actually from the Arabic in 60 Steps program, because for the first 15 steps, I have this kind of setup for teaching where we have like a bird's eye view camera on my table, so you can see a big, like, I think it's A2 size paper that I have in front of me, and I have like 4 different colours, and then I also have a camera on my face, so sometimes it cuts to the bird's eye view camera, you can see what I'm drawing out on this big bit of paper, and we make these posters. Those of you watching on YouTube, this is the step 11 one. This is my big poster that I made for al-fi'l al-majzoom, for majzoom verbs, and past negative as well. We're covering that lesson because see how colourful it is and stuff, and you know we've got tons of examples, and you know that's really good for visual. But even while we're talking about kinesthetic learning, like just the process of making that, like just the process of having these big bits of paper out, and I've got all these like big pens and stuff, like that was always really useful for me just as a kinesthetic learner. And yeah, I mean probably the most obvious, you know, like that's kind of stuff that you do as a kinesthetic learner when you have the boundaries of not being able to travel and stuff. Like inherently the process of traveling to an Arab country and engaging in dialogues and stuff, inherently that's a kinesthetic process. But sometimes we don't have the privilege to be able to do that, right? Sometimes we don't have the freedom or the financial means and stuff. So whilst you have the restriction of your home or your city or whatever, we make do with more creative activities like that. So that's kinesthetic. And actually, but before we move on to visual, we'll kind of bridge the gap a little bit with some of these other things that I make. So I made ages ago when I started going to, because I started out teaching people Arabic by going to people's houses in East London and just teaching their kids Arabic. I did that for years, and I found it a really useful resource to get coloured bits of card and laminate them, and it was so cool with these because they're like flashcards that you can just write on and stuff, like, and you could just rub them out easily and stuff. And I've got loads of different colours of them. I've got about 30 of these cards. And it was so useful. There was such just a flexible bit of equipment that I used for years. Like literally like 2 years I think I used these for. Mine are all dirty now. But like, yeah, just laminate these bits of card. And because they're laminated, you can just write with like whiteboard marker on them and clean them. I've got, you know, loads of different colours of them. And I used to kind of, if I'd be teaching kids, I don't know, a verse of like a kid's poem or something from a children's book in Arabic or something, we'd have it written out with like each of the words on these cards, and I'd show the kids that you can do the sentence in a different order, and I'd let the kids reorganize them, and we'd see, is this a correct sentence, you know, when the verb's in this place and the, you know, and whatever's in this place and stuff, and because we've put kana at the beginning, do we need to do something else to another word? And you know, we'd you know, that was always really cool. So that's another kind of physical thing that you can make yourself, which I found really useful. So, visual learners. I mean, the big posters is the one, right? The big posters are the one for very visual learners, but really go in with colour. Like I'd say, like really go in with colour. And also, just a little hack for you guys who acknowledge that you are particularly visual learners. Don't take notes in a book that's lined. I noticed that for some reason, that just made a big difference to me. Someone as a visual learner, like I like to kind of take notes and stuff, be able to sketch things out and do big arrows and boxes around things and stuff. And it just allowed me to do that just on a subconscious level more easily when I didn't have like lined paper. You know, if it was literally just a blank white bit of paper, I just made better quality notes that accommodated my own learning style better. That's just a really small thing that just as someone who's very visual myself, like I found that really helped. But make the time to go in with colour. When you do buy pens, what's a really good idea, especially if you're doing these big, if you're doing these big, posters and stuff, is when you buy pens, make sure that they're chisel tip. Those of you who are watching on YouTube, you're able to see them holding the pens up. Like, these kind of chisel tips, when they're at an angle, it makes your Arabic writing so much more satisfying, right? Like, and that, even though it's such a small little, like, it's only really people like me who care about that, but, like, it just makes your posters and your resources so satisfying when you can write in, like, nice kind of calligraphy. And so buy chisel tip pens if if they're available or whatever. They're almost available everywhere. Like, they're not even like an Arabic writing thing. They're a thing that I think I got these from Office Outlet or whatever before they closed down here in Northampton. They were selling everything really cheap. They had like a clearance thing, so I went in and bought loads of these. But if you don't have that available, highlighters are really good. Highlighters are really good for visual learners because obviously they're bright colours, but then also they're almost always chisel tip themselves. So you don't even need to go out and look for specific chisel tip highlighters. Makes it a bit more satisfying for writing your Arabic. Another bit of advice is get a whiteboard. Get a whiteboard. I've got one. Can't really sort of explain what sort of size it is. It might be like a meter high by half a meter wide or something like that. Like, it's small enough for me to like I used to take it on the train and stuff when I'd go back to Cornwall in the summer holiday. Then when I came into London and to go to uni and stuff, I used to carry this whiteboard. But like, it was just so useful for me to be able to look at lots of different things all at once. Like, I could kind of do a map of the whole of all of the Arabic that I'd learned on this big whiteboard, and I highly recommend that. I think that's about everything. I think that's about everything for visual that I wanted to say. I mean, that's all kind of stuff for kind of in the pen and paper world, right? That's without kind of being in the digital world, but obviously all of those same kind of principles apply to writing in different colour fonts if you type stuff on your computer or whatever. And I don't know, just be aware of that. Like, if I tend to find in the creation of my resources that connection with a person who they can relate with is more important than any of the kind of secondary stuff. I mean, like, when I first started creating resources online, I thought, well, online you have the power to be able to do video animations, you have the power to do, all of these kind of like graphic stuff. So like, why would I just be talking to the camera like you could get in real life? But like, this is kind of an advice to the teachers out there. Like, people are actually just really craving just relatable human beings. And people are really craving that. Like my videos that students say the most useful to people are ones that you can just see my face and I'm just talking to you like an actual person. Do you know what I mean? So I can't remember what my point was there really. I was talking about kind of when you consume videos and stuff online. If you are a very visual person, perhaps when you search for resources on YouTube, type in whiteboard animation as well, maybe, or animated videos or cartoon or whatever. If you want things that are a bit more colourful and stuff. I think whiteboard animations are especially good for that, which is why, on the Arabic in 60 Steps program, our first 15 lessons are kind of me talking head, and and there's kind of a bird's eye view camera, as I mentioned, with the big poster, and that's how we teach. But then after that, when students are a bit more settled into the program and really want to get deep and have a lot of examples and stuff, I teach through whiteboard animations after that. Like, I record an audio and then we put together like a 15-minute whiteboard animated video. Because as well with that, like, when you do these digital whiteboard animated videos, you have all of this space, right? Like, you can literally you can use as much space as there are pixels on the whole canvas. There's like 5,000 pixels that you can use. So if I wanted, I could do 100 examples with each lesson. But when I kind of did this sort of bird's eye view camera approach when I taught at this table, like, I can't, when we look at my sort of A2 bit of paper, I can't do any more notes than that. Like, I'd get to that point and I'd be like, well, the lesson's finished because the paper's finished. But obviously you don't have that with whiteboard animations. That's something more for the teachers, really, but for the students out there, it's useful for you guys to kind of, if you are very visual, then whiteboard animations are probably a wicked way for you guys to learn. I will actually give a shout out to Arabic Workshop, because those guys, the guys at Arabic Workshop, I had dinner with two of the kind of founding members of Arabic Workshop. I'm not sure what their roles are, but there's a brother called Ryan, Revert brother, and a brother called Faraz as well. They're both from London, and I had dinner with them a little while ago, and they kind of talked to me about Arabic Workshop, and you can check them out on Facebook. They're pretty active on Facebook and on Instagram as well, and they kind of their main focus is on listening, on Arabic, on listening, but they have these beautiful whiteboard animations. Like I'm talking about like bespoke, custom designed with like a professional illustrator doing their own bespoke designs for it. And that they do amazing whiteboard animations, and amazing voiceover as well. They have native speakers for it and stuff. It's really, really amazing what they do. So shout out to those guys. Go and follow them and stuff if you're into that kind of thing. And that they're really good for auditory learners as well, obviously, because they focus on listening. But their whiteboard animations are beautiful. So we'll just give a shout out to them. Last one is linear. What on earth can we do to help people who are linear learners? In a way, I sort of don't want to help people who are linear learners because they've had it easy anyway. But what I perhaps will say is vary the genres that you read. I think people kind of get into learning Arabic a little bit and maybe think that, I don't know, like I had a conversation the other day with one of my students over the phone, and he'd kind of been just writing paragraphs, right? Just writing paragraphs about everyday stuff in his Arabic, and like the advice that I gave him, which has really helped him, is just to vary the kind of genres that you're writing in, and for linear people that's important. So what do I mean by that? So number one, when you're reading, obviously vary the genres. I mean, vary the topics is really what I mean, rather than genres. But so you're just getting a wide variety of different vocabulary, and be conscious about that as well. Like if you know that you're pretty incompetent at reading about a specific topic, seek out articles on that topic, build a little vocab list around that specific topic, and and have that in your notes. But for writing, the advice that I gave to this student was he sort of wanted help with his speaking, right? Like he thought, well, if I can write well and I just get quicker at that skill, then that's kind of the same as speaking. And it really is, actually. Like, there only is really understanding Arabic and then producing Arabic. And the understanding of the Arabic is just the reading and the listening. And the producing of it is the writing. And then that process just quicker is speaking, right? And he'd just been writing paragraphs, and the advice that I gave him was, well, why don't you write out dialogues instead? Like if you write out just a cold paragraph about what football team you like or whatever, why not write a dialogue about like between you and someone who supports a team that you don't or whatever, and just think about what that conversation would look like and what things those individuals would say to each other in a dialogue rather than just in a monologue paragraph, and that seems to have really helped him. So so that's some advice that I kind of give to people who are linear, just to kind of guide your studies a little bit more. So just on a last note, regardless of what kind of learner you are, what learning style you like best, or what combination of learning styles you like best, at the end of the day, you really need to be in your learning, right? Like you need to be present in it and keep a finger on the pulse of like how much better have you got, right? Because I think that you should really feel like you're getting better. You should feel like you're learning more, regardless of regardless of what your teacher says or whatever. Like you are the only one really who is conscious of you actually improving. Whether the teacher knows that you're improving or not is almost irrelevant, really, if you're not conscious of you making any improvement at all. So so whatever your learning style is, you need to have your finger on the pulse, really. You need to be in it. You need to be conscious of it, and that'll kind of lead you to have a bit more kind of self-esteem, really, and a bit more momentum, because that's really important in learning Arabic. Like, I did a video a little while ago about the 80% rule that I apply to the students on the 60 Steps program. Momentum is so important, right? Like it's really good for you to kind of leverage these kind of learning styles, understand how you learn best, so that you can kind of build up a bit of momentum, right? Like you can understand how you learn and then leverage that to make yourself learn more. And but back to the 80% rule then. I have a video on my YouTube channel where I talk about it, but in essence, it's the rule that you can move on to the next step if you've understood 80% of it. Why not 100? Well, 100 ideally, right? But you can move on at 80, because after you have understood a step or a concept in Arabic 80%, that next 20%, the amount it will slow you down to achieve that next 20% isn't that bit of knowledge isn't worth as much as the momentum and your self-esteem of being able to just progress, right? And languages as such that you will always encounter that stuff again anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like, even if you didn't quite understand step 2 in the program, which is on prepositions, by the way, you're going to see prepositions in every single Arabic text that you ever read in your life, right? Like, so if you understood 80% of it, that's all right. Move on. Keep your momentum. Keep your self-esteem up. Keep happy with your studies and stuff, because you're going to fill in the gaps. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're going to fill in the gaps. So I think any kind of linear curriculum, any kind of step-by-step curriculum, you need to have things like that in place for when you can move on, because language isn't like your language acquisition, of your native language wasn't linear. Like, you weren't born and then they said, welcome to the world. This is a jumla ismiyya. This is a jumla fi'liyya. This is a fi'l mudari'. This is fi'l madi. This is fi'l majzoom and fi'l mansoob and stuff. that didn't happen when you were born, right? Like, you were born and you generally picked up some basic rules of whatever language you speak, and you got them wrong all the time, and that was fine. And you picked them up again. You heard your parents use them all the time, and you filled in the gaps and you got it. And that's what it will be like for you guys learning Arabic, inshallah. So long as you, so long as you put yourselves in it, you put yourselves in language learning environment and immerse yourself to the best of your ability. On immersion, let's end the podcast by reminding ourselves of My Arabic World. My Arabic World is a little service that I'm bringing out very, very soon. I've been planning it for ages. We have wanted to launch it before, but it's just a big undertaking. It's a big undertaking. But we are launching it soon, inshallah. The new deadline is by the end of the month, inshallah. I'd like to launch it by the end of the month, so 1st of August. For those of you who don't know and haven't heard of it before, My Arabic World is an online, purpose-built immersion experience where students of the Arabic language can immerse themselves in a huge variety of different contexts of the Arabic language. So you might be able to watch a video in Arabic of an interview with a sheikh from Egypt, or you might see an Arabic video of people bartering in the market, or you might have Arabic videos of children playing in the playground having conversations about what they're going to have for lunch or whatever. There's just such a huge variety of different moments that we've managed to capture through the power of video from the Arab world, and then myself and my team, we unpack those moments for you, right? So you can experience the immersion that the Arabic world has to offer without an expensive flight, without all the kind of anxiety that you have trying to say your first few sentences to a native speaker. We kind of simulate that process for you. And actually, I think it's actually better, and amazingly, I think it's actually better. We've stumbled across something which in some ways is better than actually going and immersing yourself in an Arab country in a way, because even if you go to an Arab country, you might not experience a variety of different language situations, right? Like if you go, you'll probably spend your first 6 months, the main conversations you have with people will just be about why you're learning Arabic. Like, that might be the main thing for you. For me, I told people the story of how I became a Muslim literally 1,000 times, right? I had that same conversation with everybody, right? And I got proper fluent at that. But in the Arab world, it can be hard. Like, if you wanted to go to the Arab world and you wanted to get well versed and well practiced in having conversations about cars or something, it would be harder for you to have those conversations with people, right? The sort of people who have the knowledge of cars and want to talk about cars might not be the sort of people who want to talk to you even. Do you know what I mean? It's just an assumption that they want to talk to you. They want to talk to a foreigner they're busy with their day or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, we can kind of package the Arabic language and we present it to you. But the thing that's really exciting that I want to tell you guys about is we are launching it before the end of this month, inshallah, and we're going to do like an initial launch, and we're going to give you a big discount as well. And we've got free t-shirts that we're going to give away to the first 300 people who join. So we're giving a big discount from like £70 a year to £50 for the whole year. And we're giving every single one of those 300 people a free t-shirt as well, which we'll post to your house. Obviously no extra cost at all, don't have to pay for postage, don't have to pay for packaging, nothing like that. Because we just want to show appreciation for those first 300 people who are kind of ambassadors for the program, and they want to be part of it and stuff, and they came on board early. So I've got my designer at the moment designing some beautiful t-shirts, and I'll show you guys a little preview of them soon. Maybe on Instagram I'll upload a picture of our design that we have. So that's everything. If you want to get your hands on one of those t-shirts, it's a really good idea for you to go over to myarabicworld.com/coming soon, and you can register your interest if you're interested in the idea. That'll give you the opportunity to be notified first before anybody else is. We'll obviously send out an email before we do anything on social media or anything to let all the potential students know that it's launched, and if you're quick, you can be one of the first 300 who are on the My Arabic World. It's not a program really. It's more just it's more a resource than a program as such. It's not sort of linear. So that's it for this episode, I think. I don't know what else to give you or to ask you for. So maybe I'll let you guys just get on with the rest of your day. I'm gonna drink this coffee because it's been in front of me, and I've been so excited to talk to you guys that I haven't even finished it. I haven't even finished it. But what I'm gonna Do you know what? Hang around, actually. Hang around for a minute, because also I've got a couple of other things to show you, actually. So, other things that you can do, that, by the way, those of you who like cards and making cards and using cards for your Arabic language learning, there are these that I was gifted these years ago, and I actually taught using these in an institute in London. There's a website called I Love Quran, and we have these little cards. And basically, you buy these packs. There's each pack has a surah. This is the surah to Nas ones, and literally there's just like. There's a word on each one of the cards, and it'll tell you if it's a noun, it'll tell you how many times that word is used in the Quran, it'll tell you what the root letters are, and it just allows you to kind of build these sentences and stuff. I thought I'd share that with you as we're talking about different learning styles, and that's something that's very kinesthetic, right? Like if you've got kids, probably especially boys, and you want to give them cards on the table they can move around and games that they can play, then they're really cool things for you to have a go on. They'll also tell you what kind of a word it is, if it's a noun or a connecting word, or we've got verbs and we've got adjectives and prepositions and stuff. They're all color coded and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. Those are, but that is actually everything. That is everything. There was just those I wanted to mention before we ended the podcast, and this podcast has been a hodgepodge of different things, hasn't it? Really, I've mentioned loads of different things, but I hope you guys have enjoyed it, and if you guys have joined it, I hope you guys have enjoyed it anyway, regardless of the fumbling, and regardless of the how much of a hodgepodge of different things it was. That's it, guys. What are we going to do in the next episode? Episode 38. I do have an episode planned where we're going to go over the different kinds of wow in Arabic, because there's loads of them. Like, loads of my students are like, what's the difference between this wow and this other wow? Why is it that after this wow, this word has a kasr on after this wow? Why sometimes do we see wallahi and sometimes we see wallahu? Well, why is that the case? We might go over that next week. It wouldn't be a particularly long episode, but it's one that would be a useful little Arabic bite for you guys. Catch you guys in the next one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.